For me, Nietzsche is infatuating because I disagree with a lot of his ideas, but it's precisely for that reason that I think we need to engage him. If we want to be enlightened readers, then I think we need to come to terms with a lot of ideas out there that we're perhaps not terribly partial to, or which are quite controversial. And of course, Nietzsche, in addition to being one of the most profoundly influential writers of world literature, is also one of the highly controversial ones. When we think about young Nietzsche, it's somewhat unusual because usually our impressions of Nietzsche are that of the later Nietzsche. Concepts like the Übermensch, the genealogy of morals, beyond good and evil, and Zarathustra is usually what we associate, at least in our imagination, and what we see in social media and in cyberspace, our understanding of what Nietzsche is about. In reality, what we tend to do is to overlook the young Nietzsche, that is the work of the boy, the adolescent, the young man. So in this course, what we're going to look at are the young Nietzsche's early writings, his short stories, lyric poetry, memories that we find in his letters. We're going to also be looking at his musical compositions, because young Nietzsche was a very proficient pianist. It's one reason why Nietzsche became a close friend of Richard Wagner. Nietzsche was professor of classical philology at the University in Basel. When we talk about Nietzsche the philosopher, we need to keep in mind that for at least half of his life, he was a philologist. When Nietzsche talks about, well, there are only interpretations and no facts, that really can't be something that Nietzsche himself was convinced of, because as a classical philologist, he needed to know the ancients, not just the moderns. He needed to use a kind of scrutiny, almost, let's say, a science of philology, which it was known at that time. So for Nietzsche, there were a lot of facts, but clearly his interpretation of life, perhaps like yours and mine, is something that we are enamored by in the writings of Friedrich Nietzsche. So what we're trying to do in the course is to really put together what is the later Nietzsche, the one that we know who is the author of works like the Genealogy of Morals, Beyond Good and Evil, Zarathustra, and trying to account for that in light of this early development. So the question is, what influence have these early writings, has the young Nietzsche had upon his later work? That is something that will be quite original, and I think very interesting to the seminarians when we study closely the work of young Nietzsche.